want to say Happy Mother's Day to everybody, all the mothers in the room. Happy Mother's Day to everybody. Not only to the mothers, but to the spiritual mothers, because they're very important in the church. To the spiritual mothers, the grandmothers, the bonus moms, and then all the women in the room, because they play a vital part in the raising up of the young women in this world, and making sure that they're raised right and in the church. The message today I want to talk about is something that motherhood has taught me better than almost anything else, and that's trust. You can be seated for a moment. Because motherhood has a way of teaching you very quickly that so much of life is completely out of your control. How many of you know that? Once you have children, before you have children, you're the most perfect mother ever. You look at other mothers and you're like, I would never do that. I would never do that. You're the most perfect mother before you have children. But once you have children, you realize that it's all out of your control in your life, and things don't ever go according to plan, as you know. I have 5 children of my own, and trying to get them out the door in the morning never goes according to plan. Almost never. Maybe once in a blue moon, and that's like a miracle. When they're little, we want to hold on tight to them. We want to keep them little as long as possible. I have my youngest, he's 2. And when my girls were little, I was just trying to survive. How many know when you have a bunch of little ones, you're just trying to make it through the day? I was trying to make it through the day while Marcus worked long hours, and I had a bunch of little toddlers. I had four kids 5 and under at one time, and they were rambunctious. Like, if you've met any of them, they've got personality. How many know if you've met them? I love their little personalities now. They're fun. I like them as teenagers because I can have fun with them now, but when they were little, it was rough. But we want to hold on to them. We want to keep them close. And we realize pretty quickly that motherhood is also about releasing control, releasing them into adulthood, and then eventually releasing them into their purpose. And honestly, as a mom, that's something I struggle with. How many mothers struggle with the releasing part? I know I struggle with that myself. Some of the greatest blessings in our lives are also the hardest things to surrender. And that's why today I want to talk about living with your hands wide open. So today we're going to read scripture. If you'll stand for the reading of the word. We're going to talk about a woman in the Bible named Hannah. And Hannah's story is powerful because it didn't just require faith before the miracle. It required faith during it, before it, and after it. So the first thing Hannah teaches us is trust God in the waiting. So our first part of this is in 1 Samuel chapter 1, and we're going to read verses 1 through 18, but I promise I'll be quick. There was a man named Elkanah who lived in Ramah in the region of Zeph. My husband's so much better at this than I am with all the words. In the hill country of Ephraim. He was the son of Joram, son of Elihu, son of Tohu, son of Zeph, and Ephraim. Elkanah had 2 wives, Hannah and Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah did not. Each year, Elkanah would travel to Shiloh to worship and sacrifice the Lord of heaven's armies to the tabernacle. The priests of the Lord at the time were the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas. On the days Elkanah presented his sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to Peninnah and each of her children. And though he loved Hannah, he would give her only one choice portion because the Lord had given her no children. So Peninnah would taunt Hannah and make fun of her because the Lord had kept her from having children. Year after year, it was the same. Peninnah would taunt Hannah as they went into the tabernacle. Each time, Hannah would be reduced to tears and would not even eat. "Why are you crying, Hannah?" Elkanah would ask. "Why aren't you eating? Why be downhearted because you have no children? You have me. Isn't that better than having 10 sons?" Once after a sacrificial meal at Shiloh, Hannah got up and went to pray. Eli the priest was sitting at his customary place beside the entrance of the tabernacle. Hannah was in a deep anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord, and she made this vow: "O Lord of heaven's armies, if you will look upon my sorrow and answer my prayer and give me a son, then I will give him back to you. He will be yours for his entire lifetime, and as a sign that he will be dedicated to the Lord, his hair will never be cut." As she was praying to the Lord, Eli watched her. Seeing her lips moving but hearing no sound, he thought she had been drinking. "Must you come here to drink?" he demanded. "Throw away your wine." "Oh, no, sir," she replied. "I haven't been drinking wine or anything stronger, but I am very discouraged, and I was pouring out my heart to the Lord. Don't think I am a wicked woman, for I have been praying out of anguish and sorrow." "In that case," Eli said, "go in peace. May the God of Israel grant your request you have asked of him." "Oh, thank you, sir," she exclaimed. Then she went back and began to eat again, and she was no longer sad. You may be seated. What makes the waiting season so difficult is not just the delay, but it feels like a silence. It feels like everyone else is getting the answers to their prayers. Everyone else is posting their blessings. Everyone else is announcing their miracles. And everybody else seems like they're moving forward while you feel like God forgot about you. Hannah kept praying in earnest. Some of you might be in your waiting season, praying for your healing, your breakthrough, your new job position, your financial breakthrough in your life, to move in your children's lives. The waiting season can be dangerous because we can be tempted to grab control, panic, force things, lose faith, turn our backs on God. But Hannah taught us a lesson. She prayed in earnest. She teaches us to keep our hands open even when heaven feels silent. And during that time, even when people were making fun of her because she had not gotten her blessing, she kept her hand open and was waiting. Marcus and Angel, do you have even $1 in your wallet in cash? Or you gave it all to the kids? Our daughters, as soon as he gets cash in his wallet and he comes home, our kids are like, can I have? He's always, "Can you two stand up? I'm going to give a little object lesson." Sometimes in our lives, we want to take control of our situation. We were talking about this last week. So I want you to stand here and you face him. And you're waiting for your blessing. I want you to take out your wallet and hold your wallet real tight. But I want you to take that $1 and try to put it in his hand, but you can't, right? Because his hand's fist closed around his wallet. So face this way so you can all see. So he's got his hand fist closed around that wallet, around his finances, around his struggle, whatever's going on in his life, or around your children acting out, or around your marriage. His fist is closed, and he's trying to give him a blessing. He's trying to give him a blessing, but he can't get that blessing. because his hand's closed and he's taking control himself over it. But if you put that in your pocket and you have your hand open, guess what? Now give it back. But just like that, we can have our hand open to the Lord so that we can receive our blessings instead of wrapped around our situation and trying to take control and trying to figure it out on our own. The second thing Hannah taught us was to trust God in the receiving. And you stay seated for this part. In 1 Samuel verses 1:19 through 23. So the story continues. The entire family got up early the next morning and went to worship the Lord once more. Then they returned home to Ramah. When Elkanah slept with Hannah, the Lord remembered her plea, and in due time she gave birth to a son. So Eli's blessing to her came true. She received that blessing because she had her hand open, and Eli saw her earnest prayer to the Lord and blessed her. And she received her blessing. She gave birth to her son. She named him Samuel, for she said, I asked the Lord for him. I want to give you a little tidbit of information. I know I wrote it in here somewhere. The name Samuel, this is nice about having a physical Bible. I know we all go to digital Bibles nowadays, but I was reading this in my actual physical Bible. And at the bottom of my Bible, it said, in Hebrew, the name Samuel is the phrase requested from God. She had made a request unto the Lord, and she received her request. And the next year, Elkanah and his family went on their annual trip to sacrifice the Lord and to keep his vow. But Hannah did not go. She told her husband, wait until the boy is weaned, then I will take him to the tabernacle and leave him there with the Lord permanently. Whatever you think is best, Elkanah agreed. Stay here for now, and may the Lord help you keep your promise. So she stayed home and nursed the boy until he was weaned. Sometimes we trust God for the promise, then we stop trusting him once we receive it. Once we receive the blessing, we start gripping tighter and tighter under that control again. And we think we need to take control back into that situation. We become so afraid to lose our blessing that we take it right out of God's hands and right back into our own. I want you to be honest, mothers. We can be really good at gripping tightly to our children. We protect, we worry, we overthink, we stress, we try to manage every outcome because we love them so deeply. I know I do. My husband will tell you I'm an overthinker. So I overthink every situation. I've already thought out every possible outcome of every situation, always to the negative outcome, never to the positive one, as he will say. So he's always my positive outlook in life. That's why God gave him to me, so I can have a positive outlook in life. But for my daughters, I care for them so deeply that I try so hard sometimes to direct their path because they're my blessing. And sometimes I overstep. I overstep God and what his plan is for their life. and what he has for them, and they're like, Mom, that's not what I want to do. That's not what God has for me. That's not my calling. And I have to take a step back. And they're like, that's not me. That's not me. That's what they like to say. That's not my thing. Oh, that's what she says all the time. I see it. That's not my thing. So I have to sometimes, as a mother, take a step back and let God take over in that situation. There's a difference between loving and controlling, and Hannah understood something powerful. Samuel was a gift and not a possession. We own possessions, but God asks us to steward our gifts. God laid that on my spirit last night. Our children, our blessings, the things we have that God, our purpose in our life, our callings, they're not our possessions. We don't own them. We're to steward them because they're our gifts from God. Trust me in saying, thank you, Lord, for what you've placed in my hand, for my gift, what you've blessed me with, what you've given me to steward, and I trust you more than myself. And I'll look to you for guidance in my parenting, in my marriage, in my finances, in my business, in my health. I'm not going to look to myself. I'm not going to look to self-help books, to social media. I'm not going to look to ChatGPT, which is my favorite thing to go to for answers now. Not my mama, not my daddy. I'm not going to look to them for answers. Only you, Lord. Only you, Lord, because you've entrusted me to steward this gift. And part 3, trust God in the releasing. In 1 Samuel 1:25 through 28, when the child was weaned, Hannah took him to the tabernacle in Shiloh. They brought along a 3-year-old bull for the sacrifice, and a basket of flour and some wine. So I didn't say this before. So each time they're going here, they're going to the tabernacle every year, annually. Eli's the priest there. I think Pastor Mark has preached about the tabernacle before, recently. Because at this time, they had to make a sacrifice for their sins, and they had to go there every year. And finally, this child was weaned, and she had promised, once he's weaned, I'll take him and leave him for the Lord, like I promised. So they're taking their bull for the sacrifice. He's finally weaned. It's time to take him. And the priest Eli is there. He's going to be looking after him from now on. Sir, do you remember me? Hannah asked. I'm the very woman who stood here several years ago praying to the Lord. I asked the Lord to give me this boy, and he has granted my request. Now I am giving him to the Lord, and he will belong to the Lord his whole life. And they worship the Lord there. So we've come to the hardest part of Hannah's story, the releasing. In another translation, which is the most common one, it says, for this child I prayed. Therefore also I have lent him to the Lord. It's one thing to trust God to give you something. It's another when he asks you to release it into a new season. Sometimes God will give you a ministry. God will give you, he gives you your children. He gives you a blessing, a home. He'll move you somewhere. And you think, I finally made it. I'm here. I did it. And then God changes up the plan. How many of us have been there where God's like, I'm changing up the plan. And you're like, what? We were here. We did it. We were in our spot. We made it. And we don't want to release it. We don't want to release our blessing. We don't want to release it. We feel like we've made it. We feel like we're here. Maybe we're in a job. We feel like we're in a perfect job. And we don't want to let it go. But God's saying, let it go. I've got something better on the other side. But we're too scared to let it go. And we're holding on tight and we won't open our hand. Motherhood's full of releasing moments. They start off small. We release our kids to their friends, to sleepovers, to going to the mall with their friends, then with boys, going on dates, relationships, then adulthood. Finally, we release them to their purpose in life. And it's scary, and sometimes we don't want to release that. Hannah trusted God enough to say, God, I trust you enough to give him to me. I trusted you enough to give him to me, and I trust you enough to give him back to you. She trusted the Lord. She trusted him through her prayers. In the beginning, praying for her miracle. She trusted him once she got her miracle. And now in the releasing, she's trusting him that he's going to take care of it all in this new season, even though he's a boy and just weaned. So imagine, my son's 2. So if they're just weaned, they're like 1 or 2, between 1 and 2. So imagine giving up your small child and saying, oh, I'm only going to ever see this child when I come back to the temple every year. That's it. I prayed and prayed and prayed for years and years and years and years for this blessing. And I get 1.5 years with this baby? Lord, what is the purpose? Why? But she trusted the Lord. That faith is deep. Maybe this morning, your Samuel is not a child. Maybe it is. Maybe it is a child. Maybe it's something you've prayed really hard for, but it feels like you're hearing silence on the other end. Maybe you've gotten your blessing, but God's moving you in a new direction, and you don't want to let it go. The question for you right now is, will you close up your hands and cling to that thing that you've been praying for and take the control back from God? Or will you keep your hand open and be ready to receive your blessing and receive your gift? If God is trusting you in this season to carry this burden, to carry the burden for what you're wanting to receive, then you can trust him when the season changes and he pours out your blessing. One of my favorite parts of this story, if you go to chapter 2, there's a lot happening there. If you want to read it, it's a lot of drama. Girls, that's a good book if you want to read it. My daughter was like, I need a juicier book of the Bible, because their dad made her write a book report to get her phone back yesterday. That's a good punishment, by the way. We make our daughters write book reports to get their phone back. But he made her read a book of the Bible to get her phone back. She's like, I need a better book. Dad picked a boring book. Read 1 Samuel. It's juicy. But one of my favorite parts of the story is in chapter 2. So Hannah and her family, each year, they would go back to the temple, and every year, Hannah would make Samuel a little robe. So imagine the next time she goes, she's little Micah's age. You guys know how my son Micah. The next time she goes, he's almost 3. So he's like yay tall. She makes him a little robe every year when she goes back, because he's studying under the priest now, and he belongs to God, because all he wears is a little ephod, like a tiny little ephod. And I think that's so touching that she still mothers him, even from afar. Because even though she gave up her blessing, she didn't stop caring. She didn't stop caring about her blessing. She still cared for it. She still stewarded him in her own little way. She made him a little robe every year when they went. Well, Eli saw this, and he blessed her again and said, may she have more children in place of this one she had given up to the Lord. She never stopped being his mommy. She released him, but the release doesn't mean you stop caring. It means that you trust God more than your own ability to control the things. Not only did she have one more son, she had two, then a third. God tripled her blessing. Do you get that? I want you to get that right now. God tripled her blessing. Amen. She opened her hand to God. She didn't try to control it. She didn't try to take it into her own hands and make it happen her way. And God tripled what she had. And she still got to go back and kind of be mommy to him a little bit in her own way. So she still got to see him. He wasn't gone forever. How many of us need that? Need to hear that. If we open our hands to the Lord, he's going to double, triple our blessing. If we just trust him and trust that the Lord's going to take control of that situation, whatever's going on in our life, whatever's happening, he's going to take control of that situation. We're going to step back and say, Lord, it's yours. I'm going to steward it the best I can in your way and in your will. But you're in control of it. If you say move, I move. If you say jump, I jump. I've not been very good about that lately. I'm a little bit of a control, well, I'm not a little bit, I'm a lot of a control freak. I'm a big proponent, or I support therapy. There you go. What's the big word for that? It like left my brain. I support therapy. I went through years of therapy because I like to control. And I drove my husband nuts with that because I control everything. But it's out of fear. My control is fear. I'm afraid. And once I realized that deep down, I'm afraid. I'm afraid it's going to go wrong. I'm afraid. And I finally just let it all go and said, God, you're in control. It's not mine, it's yours. Then the weight was lifted off my shoulders, and I could do this. I had freedom in my worship. I had freedom in my praise, freedom in doing this. A year or 2, 3 years ago, I could have never stepped up here and done this. Never. I held myself tightly back away from God because of fear and anxiety. And I finally opened my hand to God and said, it's yours, Lord. My calling, that's yours. That's not mine. Whatever you want to do with it, that's yours. This, that's yours. Whatever you want to do with it, that's yours. My marriage, that's yours. Whatever you want to do with this, that's yours. My children, they are yours. Whatever you have for them, that's yours. I'm not in control anymore. And this message is for me as much as it is for anybody else in this room. There was another mother in the Bible, in the New Testament, who had to trust God with a son. And her name was Mary. I can't imagine. You raise your baby. You nurture him. You protect him. You see this purpose inside of him. You see it because you see him when he's 12 years old and you lose him, for one. And you search for him for days. And he says, well, it was just about my father's business. You find him in the temple, sitting amongst the teachers, asking questions. You realize this is not a normal child. Well, you know that from the beginning, because you had a whole angel tell you that. That hadn't been. Fear, there's some fear. Because what they say, what TV says angels look like. Look up what a real angel looks like. Like, go Google that. They're not pretty. They are terrifying. At least some of them are. They're pretty terrifying. I would be afraid too. They're crazy. The Lord made some amazing things. It's incredible when you research that. But she saw purpose in him. And you know that because at the wedding feast, she says, Jesus, we're out of wine. She's kind of like, hey, she nudges him. They're out of wine. And we want this party to keep going. And I know what you can do. I know you've got something in you special. Because she's either seen something he's done, or she sees something in him that he can do. And he goes, woman, it is not my time. It's not my time yet. My time has not come. And you know what she does? She ignores him. Just like a mom. She ignores him and she just tells the servants, do whatever he says. And she walks away. Just do whatever he says. And he's like, I told this woman, it is not my time yet. And she's just like, do whatever he says. And she's just expecting, make some wine. Out of nothing. So he gets the barrels and they fill them with water. If you don't know the story, this is another Bible story. I'm kind of intruding on another one of your Bible stories that you might teach on. But that's his first miracle. One of his first miracles was he turned water into wine. But it was for a party. It wasn't so that like a blind man could see. It was because his mommy told him to. Isn't that something for Mother's Day? Even Jesus listened to his mommy. Isn't that funny? Listen to that, girls. Even Jesus listened to his mommy. See that, children? Jesus listened to his mommy. Mothers can often see a purpose before the world sees it. Eventually, Mary had to release him to his calling. And one day she stood at the foot of the cross and watched her son suffer and die. The same hand that held her baby boy, that nursed him, that swaddled him, now had to release him into his purpose and just trust that God knew what he was doing. You just had to trust it. How could you do that as a mother? There's another mother too. I was telling my husband this the other day. I said, a lot of people talk about Job's wife. Like she's such a terrible woman. Why does she say what she says? She's so angry at her husband. Think about it. She lost all her children. She lost everything that he lost. But she lost all her children. And she's not getting all the revelations he's getting. She's thinking, what is wrong with me? Why is this happening to us? How could God do this to us? She's angry with God. How could he take my babies? They're adults, but they're still her babies. I mean, how many of you have adult children, but they're still your babies? He's still your baby, right? My girls, they still cuddle up with me and still try to climb in my lap, even though my oldest is 15 and my second is 13. I'm like, girls, you're going to crush my legs. But I still try to cuddle up with them because one day, it'll never happen again. One day, it will be the last time and I'll never know it. Because one day, I picked her up and that was the last time. But Mary had to release her son into his calling. And she just had to trust God. But can you imagine that pain? As she opened her hand and she trusted God. And that's my message to you today. Trust God in the waiting. Trust God in the receiving. And trust God in the releasing. Live with your hands wide open. Lifted in praise, because a closed hand tries to control the future, but open hands make room for God to move.